MSW Media.
So yeah, now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 258 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. It's Wednesday, December 31st, 2025. One last day in this year. Thank God. I'm Allison Gill.
AG, what's up? Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. It's Harry Dunn here. We got a lot to cover today, as usual, which is why I love this show so much. We always got something to talk about, for better or for worse, including today a detention memo from Judge Janine Pirro for the alleged pipe bomber and an update on New Jersey Representative LaMonica McIver's case. Y'all all will remember that up in New Jersey.
Yeah, and you got to remember that stuff happened back in July, and just now the government is starting to hand over exculpatory Brady material and Jenks material that you can use to impeach witnesses. They're just being...
now.
Yeah, they suck at this, and it's on purpose because all the evidence is devastating to their case.
Yeah.
Name the case. Doesn't matter if it's McIver, somebody who assaulted an ICE officer, sandwich guy, Jim Comey, Letitia James, John Brennan, who's now under investigation.
The list goes on and on.
The pipe bomber, we're going to talk about that. It's all garbage. They suck because they're trying to cover up their problems, and it's backfiring on them. Also, Associated Press reporter Mary Clare Jalonick, she's trying to make sure that the correct history of January 6th is written, and she's got a new book coming out January 6th called Storm at the Capitol, an oral history of January 6th. And we're going to talk about some excerpts from that book that were published by the Associated Press before publication of the book. But first, before we get to any of that, we have some Hall of Fame patrons to thank. So thank you so much to Sharon Tukalski, Mitchell, Kimberly D. Stephen, David in Brooklyn, Karen Sherman, at Dirt Road Dems. You should follow them on social media. Star Lennis and Deborah Kirby. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I am deep in the throes of planning and plotting our gala for 2026.
It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. At the very least, you get free food and booze. So, hey, you might as well come out.
I can guarantee hugs, too. So, at very least, booze, food, and hugs from Harry. So,
okay, so if you're not a patron, it is so worth it to get a Harry Dunn hug. You can become a patron, come to the gala. I'll buy you dinner. I'll give you an open bar, and you get a Harry Dunn hug. You can join us and support. You'll also be supporting independent media, which is super crucial right now. And you can do that at patreon.com/aisle45pod, AISLE45POD. All the content's free, but it helps if you have the means. A lot of people don't. Trump is tanking our economy, and healthcare costs are going to go through the roof. So we appreciate you just being here. But, I want to say I did have a nice holiday. I had one whole day off. Well, I ended up writing something on my day off, but it was, I didn't have to.
Yeah. But you had to, though. That's your MO, AG. You can't sit still. You always got to do something, which is good. Like I appreciate that because it's so needed. And I like you, I'm sure you're kind of like me. It kind of just makes me feel a little bit better when I can put something down on paper and just get some thoughts out there too. So
but this is what I'd be doing if I were like, somebody's like, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, I think I did already.
Exactly. Right.
This is what, like, I'm not a golfer. So like, this is what I would be doing. This is my golf, right? And
you're doing it in beautiful San Diego, right? Beautiful 70-degree weather out there all year round.
Yeah, it's not torture. Not like this administration is, but.
Oh, tell me about it. No, I had a pretty good holiday too. I was able to spend it with a lot of family. I have 4 sisters, and all 4 of us got to get together with our parents and a couple cousins and aunts and uncles, and it was great. Those occasions I'd never take for granted. Family's very close to me and special. But the best part of it is everybody in my family can cook. So we had amazing Christmas dinner. So, and with that many people are cooking, lots of leftovers too. So I have been overindulging in eating and not knowing what day it has been for the last week or so.
Yeah, that was at a get together on Saturday, and I saw a plate of vegetables, and I was like, you know what? I need a vegetable. I am so full of cheese, and like I need a vegetable. That sounds delicious.
Man, I need some greens in my life.
I had some carrots and broccoli. But that explains a lot. You have a daughter, you've got 4 sisters, you're surrounded by incredible, strong, powerful women. So that explains a lot about you, my friend.
Yeah, I am surrounded by women, and I am here for it. And again, thank you for that, because I really believe that contributes to the person that I am. So yeah,
for sure. That's why you give such a good hug.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, everybody, let's jump in and talk about the January 6th pipe bomber. And yes, I call him the January 6th pipe bomber, even though he planted the bombs on January 5th, because the Department of Justice wants us to believe this person was a lone wolf, not MAGA, solo actor, had nothing to do with Stop the Steal, had nothing to do with January 6th. And so they're trying to separate him. So when people are like, well, it was actually January 5th. Yeah, no, this is about January 6th.
Yeah.
And I will die on this hill.
Same.
Because I know he was investigated for this. I know he was investigated for any conspiracy with other people who were there on January 6th. None of the filings from the government show where he was on January 6th. Like, did he go home? Like, if he went home, you might be able to bolster your case that he's not part of the January 6th melee.
Yeah, but, where was he?
Yeah, no, they're not mentioning it at all. But earlier this month, Judge Janine Pirro, Judge Box of Wine, who is the U.S. attorney for D.C., which hurts my soul, she filed her arrest affidavit and charges on information against Brian Cole, who they say is the pipe bomber. They had pretty thin evidence, though Cole confessed, and we'll talk about that confession. And MS Now reported that Cole is a Trump supporter. But as I pointed out back then, earlier in December when the arrest affidavit came out, the FBI left a massive 22-day gap in their affidavit. There was nothing about what this guy was doing between December 14th and January 5th. And Harry, in every single other affidavit for the rioters on January 6th, that time period is covered with whereabouts and planning and communications, especially what they did in response to Donald Trump's December 19th tweet, "Come to the Capitol, we'll be wild." Nothing for this guy. Nothing for the pipe bomber. I figured it was because if they outlined what he was doing during that time, especially after that "We'll be wild" tweet, it would be evident that this guy is MAGA. And DOJ does not want us to know his motives. They don't want us to know he's MAGA. They want us to think he's some lone wolf dude, Marxist guy who hates both parties the same.
Well, we know that that's not true. But this weekend, Judge Box of Wine, Pirro, filed a detention memo asking the court to hold this guy in prison pending his trial. And not only did they not mention anything about him, like you said, from the 14th to January 5th, they actually dropped something mentioned in the arrest affidavit filed earlier this month. In the arrest affidavit, one of the pieces of evidence they cited was that bank card transaction showed Cole at a meal in D.C. on December the 14th. That event is now totally gone. It's gone. It's just deleted. It's missing from the detention memo filed this past weekend.
It's like in the subsequent days, they found out that the meal he had was with the Oath Keepers at a restaurant called I Hate Joe Biden or something like that.
It had to be something, like you said, damning to this case, right?
Yeah, so they completely left that out. And further, Harry, the detention memo, the new one from this weekend, includes a footnote that says Cole wiped his phone on December 15th, 2020. And then again on sometime in July in 2022. And they note that wiping and that factory reset, they note it like pursuant to nothing. They just mention it. They don't say why it's important, but I'm sure it would help them contend that they have no idea what this guy was doing between December 14th and January 5th. But if his phone was wiped December 15th and again on July of 2022, all the January 5th stuff would be gone. So how do you know? Like, it's just weird. Not to mention that neither the affidavit from earlier this month nor the detention memo from this weekend mentions this guy's whereabouts on January 6th, like I said, which could actually help them if they're trying to prove he's not MAGA. If he left and didn't participate in January 6th and didn't speak to anybody, that was at January 6th and didn't conspire to do anything on January 6th, that would help them prove their case. But that's all missing from this, which tells me that he was probably there on January 6th.
Like Joe Biden says, this is just a bunch of malarkey. So yeah, whatever. And the Wall Street Journal reported that the way they were able to catch him now, where they failed for the past 5 years, is that someone at the FBI wrote a new code that enabled them to decrypt his T-Mobile phone data. That means they'll have to prove the validity of that code, which has never been used before. That could leave a lot of reasonable doubt. Additionally,
I mean, if I'm the defense lawyer, I'm like, oh, you wrote a new code? All right, you're going to have to prove to the jury that your code works. And
yeah, how did you test this? How many people did you test this on? And yeah, this is kind of just sketchy as it goes. Additionally, the detention memo has a footnote that says records obtained from the relevant cellular provider listed the relevant sector of one of those towers as facing north as of February 2021. However, the provider updated its records in April 2021 to reflect that the tower sector, in fact, faced east, an orientation that would provide coverage to the intersection of D Street and South Capitol Street Southeast. So this may sound all kind of funny to people, but that's how in that area where they were tracking him, they were able to track his phone because the towers were faced or aligned a certain way. The eastward orientation was consistent with the FBI drive tests conducted in January and February 2021. Based on the information available, the FBI assesses that the provider record listing the relevant tower sector as facing north in February 2021 was an error that was corrected in April 2021, and that on January 5th, 2021, that tower sector faced east. So it's a lot of inconsistency. So they're saying that that may sound like a lot of tech talk to a lot of people, but basically what it's saying is these towers couldn't have been facing the way that the FBI said that they were when the provider, which I think is T-Mobile provider, is saying, wait, no, they were actually facing this way. So.
Yeah, so that tower had to be facing east in order for them to pick him up. But the provider showed that it was facing north. And then when they went back in, the provider's like, oh, yeah, no, it's been east. We were wrong. That is, wow. I mean, reasonable doubt. Hello.
That's all. They need just a little reasonable doubt, right?
And there's more problems. Janine Pirro is trying to make us believe this guy isn't MAGA. Just like when Bondi said during the big fancy press conference when they arrested him, that his motives are unknown, his politics are complicated. They're not. But in this detention memo, Pirro is trying to do that same thing. They do not want us to know this guy is a Trump supporter. But in her language, in this filing, it gives her away. She says on December 4th, earlier this month when he was interviewed for 4 hours by law enforcement, he said, quote, I really don't like either party at this point, meaning today. I don't like either party today. But later in the memo, Pirro tries to apply that opinion to how he felt in 2020, saying he went to D.C. on January 5th because he didn't like either party.
No, that's what he's saying today.
That's not what he said.
That's what he said 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. So he doesn't. Today he doesn't like either party, but back then he didn't either. We're assuming. Like, it's just banana pants.
Yeah. And check this out. Here's how they got the confession. As the interview continued, the defendant maintained that he did not plant the pipe bombs. However, when the defendant was shown a picture of the shoes, a Nike Air Max Speed turf shoe, he admitted that he used to have a pair and stated he threw them away because they were old and they were coming apart. After approximately 2 hours, during which the defendant maintained that he had not placed the bombs, one of the interviewing agents asked the defendant if he wanted to end the interview. The defendant responded that everything is just blank and just, quote, a little too much to process. The interviewing agents then suggested that the defendant look at the video footage from the night of January 5th, 2021. When the defendant was shown a still image of himself on surveillance video close in time to the planting of the bombs, he stated that he did not recognize the person and had not previously seen the video. The interviewing agents reminded the defendant that lying to them was an additional criminal offense and asked the defendant again whether he was the individual on the surveillance video. This time, the defendant paused for approximately 15 seconds, placed his head face down on the table, and answered yes.
Okay, so for hours, he said it wasn't him. I didn't plant the bombs. It wasn't him. Did you have this pair of shoes 5 years ago? Yeah, but I threw them away. Are these your shoes? By the way, the shoes weren't mentioned in the arrest affidavit.
Yeah.
They never found the shoes. They don't have the shoes. No, they aren't mine. I wasn't there. It wasn't me. 2 hours. And then the police are like, do you want this interview to end? You know, we can charge you with lying if you don't end this interview.
Yeah.
So how about one more time you tell us? Plus, if this guy has mental issues, I mean, there is so much here. All because they're trying to cover up the fact that he's MAGA, by the way. If they just brought out all the evidence of where he was and what he did between December 15th and January 5th, or that he was there January 6th, they could ascribe a motive. They could get a confession. And you're telling me that you didn't show him the video of himself until 2 hours into the interview?
It just reeks of incompetence. Like, hey, listen, let's be 100% clear. The pipe bomber, big middle finger to you. You were responsible for the worst day of my life, and you need to rot in hell. Sorry, that's how I feel. And they need to be held accountable. But this FBI, this DOJ, they lie. They're not transparent. They're not on it. They're not forthcoming, and they're incompetent. So everything they do and have done up until this whole year has made me question: is it real?
Yeah.
You know, one, I don't trust their motives and everything like that. And it sucks because it gives a black eye or just the smudge on the credibility that the FBI used to have for those hardworking agents that don't do politics. They just want to do their job. And it sucks that it's ruined by the people that are running those agencies, i.e. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Pirro, all these losers.
Yeah. And Harry, if this guy is guilty, he could walk because the DOJ is trying to hide his motives from the public. So he could walk. But here's something else important. This guy still hasn't been indicted. I don't know if people know that or not, but he has not been indicted by a grand jury. He's only been charged on information.
Now, do they have to? Like, do you need an indictment with a confession, I guess? Because
you sure do.
Okay.
Yeah, you need a grand jury to indict. And the DOJ is running out of time because there's a time limit. Okay?
Yeah.
It can be extended, but Brian Cole's attorneys have filed a memo on Sunday to confirm that the preliminary hearing date is December 30th. That is what? Yesterday?
Yeah.
And so we're recording this on the 29th, so we don't have the information from that hearing, but that's where the government has to show since they don't have an indictment yet, that there's probable cause to keep this guy arrested. And Brian Cole's attorneys filed this memo asking the court to force the Department of Justice to present their probable cause evidence yesterday, as you're listening to this. And we're going to talk about that motion after this break. And then obviously we're going to cover the hearing on the next episode. But everybody stick around. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Let's talk about Brian Cole's Sunday motion to keep the preliminary hearing for December 30th because he's being held and he still hasn't been charged by a grand jury. He writes, Defendant Brian Cole Jr. through undersigned counsel respectfully moves the court to confirm that the hearing already set for Tuesday, December 30th will proceed as both the Rule 5.1 preliminary hearing and the detention hearing. And number 2, enforce the statutory timeline and remedy provided by Title 18 U.S. Code Section 3060. That's the code that says you gotta have a hearing within 14 days if you don't have an indictment. And if you don't, and you can't prove probable cause, that you have to release them. You have to release them from prison. In the event the government objects to a preliminary hearing on that date, Mr. Cole has not waived his right to a preliminary hearing and does not consent to any adjournment. You have to have him consent to postponing this thing.
It doesn't sound like he's ready to do that. He goes on to say on December 28th, 2025, when pressed on the question of proceeding with the preliminary hearing on December 30th, the government asked to push the preliminary hearing to either January 7th or 8th. That request comes too late and does not meet Rule 5.1 rigorous standard. The court should confirm that December 30th is the preliminary hearing and detention hearing and direct the government to be prepared to present its evidence in support of probable cause.
Yeah, what do you want to bet they want to push this to January 7th or 8th because they're trying to get a grand jury to indict this guy?
Yeah, that's
They
what it
go on to
sounds
say,
like.
yeah, Federal Criminal Rule 5.1 and 18 U.S. Code 3060 work in tandem to ensure that the defendant arrested on a complaint receives a prompt probable cause determination. For an in-custody defendant, the preliminary hearing must be set no later than 14 days after the initial appearance and may be extended without the defendant's consent only upon a showing of extraordinary circumstances or that justice requires the delay. Section 3060 supplies the remedy if they miss the deadline. You have to discharge from custody.
Seems pretty clear. In its email to defense counsel, the government has identified no extraordinary circumstances. Rather, the reasons referenced are ordinary scheduling matters and the possibility of a forthcoming indictment. Right? To be clear, Mr. Cole, through counsel, consented to an extension until Tuesday, December 30th, but he has not consented to any further delay as a result. December 30th is the proper timely date for the preliminary hearing. The government's desire to accommodate ordinary scheduling or the pace of a grand jury is not a lawful bias to continue the hearing for which it has had more than 3 weeks to prepare.
Yeah, see, that's it. The original hearing was supposed to be a couple weeks ago, 14 days after the arrest.
Yeah. So they're saying he had more than 3 weeks to prepare, which is over 21 days. So
yeah, and he agreed to extend it once to December 30th, right? So they've had twice the amount of time and they still don't have an indictment, which, I mean, you got to wonder. Notice that they mentioned the pace of the grand jury, right? They said the pace of the grand jury is not a lawful basis to continue the hearing. So I'm wondering, is DOJ having a hard time getting a grand jury to indict Brian Cole? So they conclude, defendant Cole then moves the court to 1, grant this motion in full, 2, confirm December 30th will proceed as the preliminary hearing and the detention hearing, 3, direct the government to be prepared to present evidence, 4, to deny any further continuance absent the strict Rule 5.1 showing, which the government cannot make here, and 5, if the preliminary hearing is not timely held and no indictment has intervened, if you can't get an indictment, to order Mr. Cole's immediate discharge from custody pursuant to Title 18 U.S. Code 3060. So if you don't have probable cause and you don't have an indictment, even though you've had an extra 2 weeks to get one.
Yeah.
Wow.
AG, that whole saying about the indicting a ham sandwich thing is making, my gosh, but this DOJ is so incompetent. Like,
yeah. And I'm wondering if there are people who were like, yeah, we've had all this information you have in your arrest affidavit and we didn't indict because we didn't think a grand jury would indict on this evidence. And, you know, I'm wondering if somebody's going to come forward with that information and say, yeah. And I wonder if they're going to fail to get an indictment. This guy might walk free. And I wonder if this is all because they're trying to cover up the fact that he's MAGA.
Yeah. I've never been, I don't know about you, but, and I know I probably never will ever utter these words, but I'm really curious as to what Dan Bongino has to say. You know, because obviously he's resigning, you know, the beginning is effective in the next week or so.
He's
but
he's already gone, though.
He's already gone, though,
clear,
right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's going to go back into podcasting, right?
Oh, sure.
And I would love to hear what he had to say specifically about this case, because like you just mentioned, AG, I think a lot of people within the agency or the Bureau have already had this information, but they could not get an indictment through a grand jury based on the weak evidence that we've been privy to so far. So curious to see what his thoughts on this are. And again, I never thought I'd utter those words.
Call into his podcast. This is Harry Dunn, former Capitol Police officer. I just have a question for you.
Exactly. What are your thoughts? Like,
by the way, hanging up on me, it would be really bad for your reputation. So just listen and hear me out, okay?
Hear me out, my friend.
What do you think? So I see you're going back to what made you $160 million, not what paid you $160,000.
$1,000, right?
Congratulations on choosing theories over facts. Remember when he was told Fox News, he's like, Look, I missed my job where all I had to do was give theories. Now I work for the FBI and it's all based in facts.
Only
My
the
life
best
is
people.
terrible.
Only the best people.
Oh, man.
What a joke.
That should be the number one. Like, you wouldn't think you would have to ask somebody you're interviewing to be the deputy director of the FBI, like, do you like facts? Like, you think...
He's like, no, I like the theories. The theories of the case. I could just play law enforcement.
We're going to change the interview now. Can you make sure they like facts first before you hire them? Oh, God. All right. We've got more to discuss, a lot more to discuss, especially some interesting information that came up in discovery in LaMonica McIver's case. But we have to take another quick break, so stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. All right, like we said before the break, we have an update for you on the ridiculous criminal case against New Jersey Congresswoman LaMonica McIver. Her lawyers wrote a letter to the judge, Judge Semper, informing him that the government has failed, of course, to produce discovery in the case. Big surprise there, right? Her lawyer writes, on behalf of Congresswoman McIver, we write because the government still has failed to fulfill its obligation to identify, collect, and produce communications among ICE personnel who were present at Delaney Hall on May 9th, 2025. Indeed, despite numerous examples of these agents and officers having exchanged messages related to the events of that day, the government has not ascertained whether relevant messages exist on their personal devices, B, taken affirmative steps to preserve that information, C, collected and reviewed any of the material, or D, preserved information on the government devices issued to 3 of those individuals. Accordingly, we will respectfully request that the court order the government to investigate the existence of responsive and Brady materials on personal devices, to collect and produce these materials immediately, and to explain in writing why their preservation efforts and why information is missing.
Goes on to say, separately, Congresswoman McIver has once again raised with the government that ICE may not have produced all surveillance videos from Delaney Hall on May 9th as ordered by the court. So they're missing videos, too.
Mm-hmm.
Following the October 21st hearing, the government produced merely 54 messages from fewer than half of the 23 individuals who were present at Delaney Hall on May 9th. And in that paltry production, which is, 4 months late, there were a couple of exculpatory messages in there, including, on May 10th, an ICE officer sent a message in a Signal group chat to other ICE officers expressing doubt that any of the members would be arrested, like McIver, because the conduct, quote, wasn't enough, like a swing or anything. That reaction is material and exculpatory, and the government should have looked for it and produced it in July. And on the morning of May 9th, the ICE officer who later that day shoved Congresswoman McIver as she attempted to re-enter the gate sent a message in a group chat in which he used a racial slur referring to African Americans. Other officers responded with amusement. One officer joked that another of their colleagues, an African American officer included in the group text, is probably, quote, having a stroke right now. Because they used the N-word, and there was a black person in the group chat. At least 2 of the ICE personnel in the group then responded with laughing emojis. That type of behavior is material impeachment evidence for any of the officers who participated in the Signal group chat, particularly given the group's later aggressive treatment of Mayor Baraka and Congresswoman McIver. Those messages should have been produced well before October, end of October.
Well before. This happened back in July, was it? Man. Yeah. Then, on November 26th, this year, 2025, this year still, in response to the court's direction at the November 17th hearing, the government produced materials categorized as custodian emails, custodian Teams messages, and custodian device communications. The government's production further demonstrated that the government had been withholding communications that are both material favorable to Congresswoman McIver's defense.
Gosh, all this withholding stuff that makes them look bad.
Yeah.
Separately and relatedly, it is now apparent that the government has failed to take adequate steps to preserve all potentially discoverable material. In its November 26th, 2025 discovery production letter, the government noted that it was, quote, unable to obtain communications for production from the devices of 3 custodians. That is, 3 officers or agents who were present at Delaney Hall on May 9th. One of whom was a senior official. The government's letter provided no explanation for that deficiency. In a subsequent meeting and conference by telephone on December 4th, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 8 months later, the government explained that the senior official's government device had been wiped when he left government service, months after May 9th, and months after the government had supposedly instituted a preservation hold.
Yeah, during that same telephone call, the government further represented that it had no explanation why the second officer's phone contained no data. Really? Finally, the government explained that it still was investigating the status of the third custodian's phone data. There has been no update since that call. Notably, other government custodians received messages on May 9th between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. from at least one officer from whom the government has not been able to collect data from. Therefore, discoverable communications either still existed on that device or have since been deleted.
It's just wiped away like the January 6th Secret Service text messages.
I was just about to say that, but yep, that sounds very familiar.
Just gone. Or signal chat disappearing messages. They go on to say there's other evidence that the production is incomplete or that messages have been deleted. For example, there are instances where messages received by one custodian are missing from the sender's production. So two people having a conversation, we got two phones, and they're only there in one of the phones.
One of the phones.
But the government has apparently not attempted to determine the cause. I can tell you what it is.
I'm about to say, AJ, is this rocket science? Like
they deleted it because it's devastating for their case. That's why. That's why it's not on one phone. Oh my goodness, they suck at this, Harry.
Yeah,
they have to somehow go after their political enemies without facts.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. There's this case, like just based off of that, it sounds like you can get it thrown out based off of this. But man,
yeah, and
thoughts with Miss Representative McIver because she doesn't deserve this crap, man.
Yeah, and that was baller of her to show back up at the scene.
Yep, sure
and
was.
Do an inspection, and she's like, "I'm here. You can't stop me from providing oversight with your weird framing things." And the text messages is like, "Oh yeah, she didn't assault anybody. We're in trouble. There was no swing. She didn't do anything. This looks bad for us."
And we call her the N-word.
Oh, hey, there's an N-word in our chat. Oh, ha, ha, ha.
Oh, somebody delete this from their phone. Not everybody, though.
Oh, sorry, my phone got wiped. When I left. So the thing happened in May. I left government service in like August, and you wiped my phone after getting a preservation order 3 months earlier, not to wipe anybody's phones from folks who
very
were there.
Secret Service-ish.
Bro. This is so. Look, she's gonna walk. This pipe bomber could walk, and if he is the pipe bomber, I'm not sure he's a pipe bomber. I think he might have been coerced into confessing.
Yeah,
but he's gonna walk. If they might have to let him out of jail tomorrow because the grand jury hasn't indicted him in a month. They've had a month, to indict the pipe bomber,
which is insane.
This is why you have to, as prosecutors, and I know it sucks because it takes a long time when you're trying to get a guy like Trump put in jail, but this is why you got to cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
Multiple times, by the way.
Yeah. That's why it takes so long. You know, everyone was like, well, the Manhattan district attorney got Trump before the election. They were able to convict him. Yeah, but that crime happened in 2016.
I was about to say, that wasn't just yet. That wasn't.
They got him 5 years later.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a long time. It sucks. And it works out better for people with money.
Yeah.
And power and status.
Delay.
It really does. And that sucks. And we have to do something to fix it without taking away our rights to due process.
Yeah.
Because if the shoe's on the other foot, you want the prosecutors.
We want those same, exactly. We want those same rights afforded to us.
Yeah. You want to be able to delay when you get to delay. You want to be able to hurry up and have your, probation hearing or probable cause hearing and detention hearing before you get indicted by a grand jury. You want to be able to do that. You want to be able to have those rights if it happens to you. Unfortunately, it's not applied to everyone equally.
Nope.
As we know. But we shouldn't make everything else suck for the rich people. We should make everything better for the rest of us.
Better for the rest of us. I could not agree more.
Everyone should be treated like Donald Trump when they're arrested. Not Donald Trump should be treated like everyone when he's arrested. Does that make sense?
It makes. I get what you're saying. I agree 100%.
It's just, people just don't have the money. It costs a lot of money to do that stuff, to have a good lawyer. But a lot of these public defenders are getting folks off the hook for assaulting ICE officers.
Yeah.
They're doing really, really good work. But we just don't have enough public defenders for the amount of bullshit coming out of this Department of Justice.
Are they? Well, yes, they are doing good work. But are they doing good work, or is the DOJ like that suck that much? Like you said, they suck at this. Hey, they're not really good at this. We talked a couple shows back about the prosecution rate for the Department of Justice. It was 99.9%. Like, not this administration.
79% in DC now.
Man.
1 in 5 people are walking.
Man.
Yeah, you're right. The DOJ is making it easier for the public defenders. They really are. They really are. I could defend myself pro se against
exactly.
against one.
They're gonna be like, Dr. Gill, do you need a lawyer? Nah, I got it. Are you sure? No, look at them.
Only a fool represents themselves. I'm going up against a bunch of bigger fools. It's
these
totally
guys.
fine.
I got it.
All right. We have one more story about Mary Clare Jalonick. She's trying to write, she has written a book. It comes out January 6th. She's trying to prevent this administration from whitewashing what happened on January 6th. And we'll talk about that right after this break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. All right. So this story that we're going to talk about, it's kind of heavy. Because it brings you back front and center as we approach the 5th anniversary, I guess, of the January 6th attack. All right. Mary Clare Jalonick is trying to keep the history of January 6th preserved with a new book. The Associated Press published an exclusive excerpt adapted from Storm at the Capitol, an oral history of January 6th by Associated Press reporter Mary Clare Jalonick. The book draws on personal interviews by the author, testimony, court documents, and other public sources to compile a definitive account of the hours leading up to, during, and just after rioters stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021.
Yeah, Mary Clare. Sorry, I was calling her Marie Clare. Mary Clare Jalonick documents the chain of events as told by the rioters who were loyal to Trump, the police who fought them, the lawmakers who fled the violence, and the staff, workers, and journalists who were there that day, including Jalonick herself. The rioters were echoing Trump's false claims of a stolen election, even as all 50 states had certified the vote and courts had ruled against Trump or dismissed dozens, I believe 63 lawsuits brought by his campaign.
That guy lost so much in court leading up to this. That's just funny with him just losing so much. The excerpt begins in the 4 p.m. hour on January 6th at the height of the fighting that day outside the building. Hundreds of rioters had already breached several entrances and forced lawmakers to flee both the House and Senate, stopping the certification of Democrat Joe Biden's victory. But an even larger group of people had broken through a long police line and were now aiming at the central golden doors that sit at the center of the Capitol's west front, set back in a narrow tunnel that the president walks out through on Inauguration Day.
Yeah, separately, not far from that tunnel, Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick had been sprayed directly in the face by a rioter. He had predicted the night before in a text message to his brother Ken that, quote, hell may break loose tomorrow. So you can read this entire excerpt from the forthcoming book at the Associated Press. Just Google excerpt from Storm at the Capitol, and it will come up. It's an Associated Press article. You can read the entire excerpt. It's pretty harrowing, but here are some of the statements from this particular excerpt about that Golden Door tunnel. Officer Daniel Hodges said, there's a couple dozen of us in there against, the thousands and thousands outside. And we just held it as long as we could. It was a brutal fight. Sergeant Gannell said, the rioters were vicious and relentless. We found ourselves in a violent battle in a desperate attempt to prevent a breach of the Capitol by the entrance near the inauguration stage.
Yeah, Officer Daniel Hodges, our friend Daniel Hodges, there's a couple dozen of us in there against, the thousands and thousands outside. And we just held it as long as we could. It was a brutal fight. Officer Abdul Qadir Abdi, forgive me on the pronunciation, from the Metropolitan Police Department. Every about 5 to 10 minutes, they would switch, and we would end up fighting a new batch of fresh bodies that just continued on.
Man.
Terrible.
And then
right?
Danny Hodges also said it was a battle of inches, with one side pushing the other a few inches and then the other side regaining their ground. He also said, even during the intense contest of wills, they continued to try to convert us to their cult. One man shouted, "We just want to make our voices heard, and I think you feel the same. I really think you feel the same." All while another man attempted to batter us with a stolen shield. Officer Fanone, as we know, who we know, said, at some point during the fighting, I was dragged from the line of officers into the crowd. I heard someone scream, "I got one," as I was swarmed by a violent mob. So the oral history of January 6th, Storm the Capitol, comes out January 6th on the 5th anniversary. You can check out the full excerpt at the Associated Press. But warning, it's really hard to read. Danny talks about getting caught in that door. His arms were pinned, so he couldn't use them. Somebody grabbed the baton from his hand and started beating him with it. A lot of these stories we've heard from testimony from you, testimony from Danny, Sergeant Gunnell, and others. But to read it all back to back like that, just that Golden Door Tunnel.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really tough. But I'm very, very glad that Jalonick is putting out this book. So it's out there forever.
Yeah, as it should be, especially in the days with this administration now attempting to erase what happened that day. So very good, at least from what we've read so far and what we've seen so far. But no opinions. No, I've always said this about January 6th. Don't listen to our testimonies, or you can obviously. Don't listen to the pundits. Don't listen to the podcast. Just press play and just watch for yourself what happened that day. Yeah. And that's it. That's it. You don't need nobody to tell you what you saw.
Officers and the Congress and the staff about what happened that day and what it was like. It was brutal. It was nonstop. It was like you said, a battle of inches. You would get an inch and then you would lose an inch, and then you're just 12 guys standing shoulder to shoulder in that tunnel. And then all of a sudden, they switch out and you've got a whole fresh new group of people who are, aren't tired coming at you. And there's thousands and thousands of them behind them. It's pretty awful. And of course, he didn't call out the National Guard. FBI didn't get there until much later. Finally, hours later, Donald Trump finally put out a statement, "Go home."
After how many desperate attempts from his own family members
and there's also included in that excerpt is a lot of text messages between Brian Sicknick and his brother. How he ended up in the hospital, and then we lost him the next day. Harrowing. But
very
necessary,
much so.
Necessary, right? I remember being in the January 6th committee hearing room, and I was like, we need to just never stop watching this video. These videos,
No, completely agree. I say it. I said it just now, and I will continue to say this. They are trying to erase this. So, everybody get out there and just support, not even just her, but just the preservation of history, the preservation of an attempt to overthrow our democracy and install Donald Trump as a dictator. That's basically the start of it. So, all
right, everybody. Sorry, that was kind of a downer to end on, but very necessary and important. And normally we have some Rudy news or some Lindell stuff, but there's really nothing. They were quiet over the holidays, so there's really nothing to talk about with those weirdos. But I'm sure they'll do something.
They're going to do something
in January, and we'll talk about it. But I hope everybody has a wonderful New Year's. I hope you had a great holiday. I know a lot of people this isn't the best time of year, so sending out love to you as well. And we'll see you next week. Harry, do you have any final thoughts?
Not too much. I hope everybody, I know a lot of people are, I've seen both people that are in favor of New Year's resolutions or some people that are against them. But if you do decide to make a New Year's resolution, make it for the right reason. Stay true to yourself, believe in yourself, because I believe in you too.
Yeah, don't get too down on yourself if you fall off the resolution cart every now and again. It's totally fine. These are rough times. All right, my friends, we will see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to Clean Up on Aisle 45. I'm Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Clean Up on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Clean Up on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.